Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to loop through a folder and list all the contents of that folder in an Excel file. So the macro will look in the folder and list all the contents onto an Excel worksheet. Before we get into that, go to excelvbasequel.com, watch about 12 hours of video for free. You could put your email in here. You could receive an email when new videos are uploaded. Also contact me here and I'll answer your questions. Okay, so let's get started. On my desktop, I have a folder. It's called Company A. And a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but sometimes you want to know what's in the contents of this folder. And you could do that by clicking on it and opening it up and looking at it. But the macro we want to write wants to look in this folder and list the name of every file. But also we want to list some of the other attributes of the file, like the date it was modified, the size of the file, and things like that. Okay, so we want to be able to look at that real quick. So a macro is going to enable us to do this. Notice that in this folder I have Excel files. If I just expand this type field, I have Excel files. I have a Word document. I have a text document, which is a .txt, and I have a PDF document. Okay, and I also, once again, want to note that I have the size listed here and the date modified. So what I want to do is write a macro that will look in this folder and it will list off for me the name of the file, the date modified, and the size of the file, as well as the path of this file and the extension. So is it a .xlm or is it a .doc? So I want to do something like that. So let's take a look at how we would do that. So here I want to make an Excel on this tab, sheet 1. I'm just going to write some headers, path, then I want the file name, and then I want the date modified, and then I want the size, or actually let me put the extension, then I'll put the size, and we'll start there. So let me just expand this. And I know that the path is going to be rather long, so I'm going to expand that to make it bigger. And for these other ones, I'll make them a little bit bigger. Okay, so now let's get started with the code. So I'm going to press Alt F11. I'm going to insert a module, and this sub, I want to call it loop through folder. And what I want to do here is, first thing, when I run this, I want to select the sheet 1. So I'm going to do sheets, sheet 1 dot select range A2 to let's say E5000 dot clear contents. So all I want to do first is, if I have anything in here, I want to just clear it out. Okay. Next, I want to set a file system object. So notice that before I write this, we're working with the file structure, right? We're working in this directory environment where we have, a bunch of, we have a directory, which is, what you see in this drop down, right? And we then have, within that directory, we have folders like this Company A folder. And within the folder we have files. Okay, so when you're working in that environment, there's an object that Microsoft Excel makes available to you, and it's called a file system object. And in order to access that, you have to do this. You have to do this variable, set file system object. I didn't declare it, but you don't need to. You could just write file system object. But what you're going to do here, and this is the real critical part, is this create object, and then you do inside the quotations scripting dot file system object. So what this does here is it creates an object that Microsoft Excel has in a library that will allow you this scripting.filesystem object. In this scripting class, there's it's sort of like it is an API that allows you to access the directory on a Windows system. So because I just wrote this create object scripting.filesystem object, I will be able to access files and folders in this directory. So that's what this line is doing. It's the most important line in this macro and in this video. So it basically it taps into the API into an API so that you can access objects in a directory like files and folders. That's all it does. So once we have that set up, we can do our next thing, which is going to be to set a folder object. Now, again, I didn't declare this, but it is best programming practices to declare things, but I'm not going to because sometimes you don't need to. It really isn't going to make or break the program. So I'm going to be a little bit lenient here and not declare these. And then what I want to do is do set folder object equal to this file system object that I just declared dot get folder, and then in here I'm going to paste in the folder that I want to work with. So in my case, my folder is this. It's on my desktop and it's called Company A. Okay, so what I did in these two lines, I first created this object here that is a scripting.filesystem object, and I assigned it to this this object here, this file system object. And then I use that, so because I need to access the directory, then I use that right here. Okay, I use that object right here by accessing a function called getFolder, where I pass in a path to the folder, and now what is returned of that to that function is this folder object. So now I have a folder. Okay, so now we can work with a folder, and we can loop through the folder by doing a loop like for each file object in folder object.files, and this is a loop over the files in the folder. You do next file obj. So we've seen for loops like this before, where you're iterating over a collection, and in this case we're iterating over this collection of files, and you name a variable. In this case I named it file object obj. That file object is going to be different for every file in this files collection. Okay, so now we can start entering the attributes of this file object onto this worksheet. Okay, so I could do something like this: file obj dot path. That's the path of the file. I'm going to set it to cells cells r comma 1 dot value, but I didn't declare what r is. So let me go up here and let me just do dim r as integer, and then r is equal to 2 because I want to start in the second row. So right here in the second row, I want to put in the second row first column right here, I want to put the path of that file, and then as I loop through I want to do r is equal to r plus 1, so that I go from row 2 to 3 and so on. Now I want to do some other things. In the second column, let's see what I have over here. In the second column I need just the file name. Let me just show you what this looks like before I move on to the file name. Uh, uh, Actually, after the file name comes date modified. So to access the date modified, you have to do something like this: file date time. That's a function where you could see you pass in a path name, and in our case I'm passing in this path, the path of my file object, and it's going to return the date modified. And I'm going to put that in the third column because it's the third column here. Next, I want the extension. I'm going to come back to the file name in a second. So in the fourth column, I want I want to take this file system object, and now I can do something like this: file system object dot get extension name, and within that I could do file obj dot path. Let me see if this pops up. No, it doesn't. But what this function does, get extension name, if you pass in a path, it gets the extension of the file. And notice that here I'm using this file system object again that I first declared up here. Okay, that's because this get extension name function is attached to this object. So I have to use this object in order to use this function. Okay. What's next? Okay, so now we need the size. To get the size, let me go here. There's a function called file length, and again you could pass in a path to that function. Here you could see you pass in a path and you get the length, but the length is going to be in kilobytes. So in order to make it into megabytes, we have to divide this by 1024. And this again, let me just write, because 1 megabyte is equal to 1024 kilobytes. So this length function, it looks at the file and it says how big is the file, what's the length of it, and it's going to return a number in kilobytes, but we're used to thinking in megabytes, at least when we look at these folders. You could see, actually I believe we're used to thinking in kilobytes because this folder has kilobytes. So when we divide by 1024, we're actually taking what is returned, which is going to be in megabytes. So we're taking megabytes divided by 1024 to get kilobytes. But I'm not 100. Well, yeah, yes, that is correct, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so let's loop through this and see what we get for. So I'm just stepping through, and there you can see data is being populated. So let me just run this. Well, actually, no. We'll step through and we could see that well, actually, I'll just run it. So here you could see what we did is populate this worksheet with all the information that you see here in this folder. Right? We have income statement, we have monthly summary, we have a test a document, a Word document, we have a test text file, we have a test doc PDF, we have the paths of all those things, right? Here's the path. We have the date modified. So income statement was modified in the folder. It says 647, and there you see a 647, right? Then we have the extension, right? By using that function to get the extension. And then we have the size of the file, which matches up to the size you see here. So income statement is 8 kilobytes, and we have 8 here, 7.65. We have monthly summary is 8. There's 8. We have a test document is 10 here. And if test document up here is 10. And then we have the text file at 0, and the test document for the PDF test document is 46, and that's there you see 46. So you could see we have all this information now. And this is very useful because if you have thousands of files in this folder and you need to somehow manage that or know what's going on in there and keep track of all those files somehow, you can easily write this script, this macro, to do that, to get all the pieces of information, right? So one thing that we're missing though is the actual file name. So when I say file name, I mean this portion here, income statement.xlm. So that's important because a lot of times you're going to be looking for a file name. So we could write an Excel formula to do that by parsing this in Excel by writing a formula. But we're going to do it in the macro. And how we're going to do it is to use a split function. So I'm just going to declare this or not declare it, I'm just going to write this variable ARR file name. I'm going to set that equal to, there's a split function in Microsoft Excel VBA where you can see what you pass in is an expression that's a string, and then you pass in a delimiter. So what we're going to pass in is the file object path, and our delimiter is going to be a backslash. Okay? And let me put a watch on this variable. And basically what it's going to do, well, I'll show you. So we're just going to run this. Okay, so I put a breakpoint and I reach this point. ARR file name is equal to split the path, and split it with this delimiter, this backslash. So what does that do? Well, if I take a look at it, because it's already assigned to that variable, you could see what it did. So the output of this split function is an array, and so this is an array. Okay? And the array is populated by looking at the path and breaking up that string into array elements every time it sees a backslash. So you could see I have 6 elements here: a C, users, mark, desktop, company A, income statement.xlm. Now where's that coming from? Well, that's exactly what this split function did, is that it looked at this string that I passed in, and it said every time I see a backslash, I know that every time I see a backslash, I'm going to consider that as a separator between data that I want to put in an array. So it saw a string, and it put that in an array, and it stopped right here when it got to this backslash, and it put this bit of data, this C colon, into an array. And then it kept going, and it found more characters, and then it stopped again at this backslash, and it put this users into the array. And then it did the same thing. It found more characters, and then it stopped when it found the delimiter. And then it found more characters, and then it stopped when it found the delimiter. And it put whatever those characters are into the array. So you could see that our array consists of everything. It sort of cuts up that string by looking at where the backslashes are. Okay? So now we could use this to pull this last element, because we know that's always going to be the file name. We could pull that out of this array. So we could do something like this. We could do something like this. We could do cells 2.value is equal to, let's see, the array file name, right? So now I want to pull and I want to index this array to get the last element. So you should be familiar with ubound. If you're not, go watch the videos on arrays, and all I need to do is go upper bound of the array file name. So this is going to get the file name. Okay, so now let me just bring this down a little bit. So now let me run this, and there you can see that by using that split function, I know that the last element in that array is going to be the file name, and I could put the file name right there. Okay, so now we're in business because we have everything we want. Okay, we have all the files in this folder with their date modified and their size. Notice though, we don't do anything with folders. I'm not concerned with folders at this point. If you have questions about how to find the folder names and things, let me know. But at this point, I thought it was more important to just introduce you to this concept and show you all the file names in a folder. And notice that we have different types of files. That's important too. But let me show you something here because it's a little interesting. So if I open up this income statement document, right, and now I go back to my book one that I didn't save yet. Let me press play again, and now notice what happened. So because I opened that income statement document, right here it is, income statement, I listed I have a list here that lists it twice. One time here, income statement, but because I opened it, you see that squiggly line there? That tells that's a sign that the document is open, and it's actually sort of hidden. Okay, so when you open a document, if you go into the folder, you don't see it, right? But for some reason it's showing up here when I say give me all the files in the folder. Well, this document right here is not in the folder. I don't see a squiggly line and a $ income statement. Do you? I mean, it's not there. But when you open up anything, it sort of creates a hidden document. And we need to somehow deal with that. Well, I'm going to show you how to deal with that so that we don't report this in our macro. Okay? So what we want to do is get rid of any hidden files. And it's not too tricky, but, well, actually a little bit. So in the loop, all we have to do is do something like this. We somehow have to access the attributes of the file object, and we do that like this. If not file obj attributes and 2, then and if. It actually is very tricky because it doesn't make any sense to write it like this. And if you Google this file objects.attributes, and you also Google like and2, when you Google it, you'll find other people saying, yes, this is very confusing and ridiculous, and why did they set it up like this? But I don't have the answer to that. All I know is that this is how you would handle this. Okay. So let's, in this other column, let me list for you what is in this file object.attributes field. So in 6, I'm going to just put, I'm going to show you what's in this field file object.attributes. So let me go back here, and I'm going to title this attributes. And let me just take off this if statement for now and show you what the attributes look like on the hidden file, which is this hidden file here. So let me just run this. I spelled it wrong. So here, okay. So these files are all in the folder, and this file here is not, because we look and it's not there. But I have it, and that's because I have it open. It sort of creates a hidden file. So if we scroll over to the attributes column, which I just added, you'll see that it has a number in it. Okay, and all of the files that it really exists, they have 32 in it, and the one that is hidden has 34 in it. Okay, so this took a little investigating, but if you Google this attributes, if you Google this, you will find that this indeed does return a number, and these numbers have meanings. Okay, and 32 I think means archive or normal or something. 34, I didn't find exactly what 34 is. It wasn't listed on the Microsoft MSDN Developers Network website. Like I said, you could Google this, and I would Google, if you want to, file system object attributes. But you'll see, the point is, it returns a number, and something's weird here is that this one is 34 and it's hidden. And then if you Google a little bit more, you'll find out that in order to handle this, you have to put in, you have to identify that hidden file. And to do that, you use this and to here. So right here. So this will actually use this whole statement. This statement here, file object attributes and to, it's weird, it's confusing, but it works. And if you want to understand it, you can Google it. But it will eliminate any hidden files if you use it in this case, where I put if not file object attributes and to. Because what I'm saying is only show the hidden files. Only show files that are not hidden. Okay? So that's the importance of this if statement, and remember to end the if statement. And let me just put a tab to make it a little bit cleaner. So now we have exactly what we want. Let's test it, and what we should see is that this hidden file goes away. So basically, if you're confused, let me try to sum it up. When you have a document open and you list all the files in the folder, if that file that's open came from the folder you're listing, it'll show up twice with a little tilde here. And that's Microsoft Excel's way of managing its folders. When something's open, it creates a hidden file, and you could access that by doing what we're doing. And to identify whether it's hidden or not, you basically want to use the attributes property of the file object, and then you want to use this integer value that takes, I believe, 0, 1, or 2, and 2 means hidden. So it's a weird syntax, but what you're doing here is saying these. It's hard to describe, but these sort of things go together. This file object attributes and to, that together has a meaning. Alone they don't. If I just put to here, not to, it would be meaningless. You really need to have these together to get the meaning we want in this context. So hopefully that explains it. And this will now eliminate those hidden files. So let me hit play. And there you go. So I still have the income statement workbook open right here. And and you'll see that the hidden file, the one that I have open, income statement, doesn't appear twice anymore. That's because of that if statement that said file object attributes and to. I had to use that so that it wouldn't be open. Notice that I have the value here in F because I didn't clear out all the way to F. Let me go back here real quick and stop this. And if I change this to F, it'll run again. And yeah. So there you can see it doesn't appear. We have all the information we want. We're not showing any hidden files. Again, the most important part of this video, there's two things. So let me sum up because we're at the end of the video. One, the most important thing is this line right here. And if you go on an interview, if anything like that, you could talk about this, that you know how to use the scripting file system object, because it's useful to navigate directories and folders, and that's what we're doing here. We create a file system object. From that, we use the get folder function to pass in a path that creates a folder object, and then we loop over all the files, the collection of files that are associated with that folder object. And when we're looping over that, we can access different things on each file, like the file name, the path. Well, actually, the path we can access, and then we can extract the file name using the split function, the date that it's modified, the extension, the size of that object, remember to divide by 1024, and the attributes. And this is useful when getting rid of those hidden files. Okay, so that's everything for this this video. Again, this is a pretty useful function if you ever need to find out what's in a folder. And if you're more ambitious, if you had multiple folders, well then how would you deal with that? Let me just sum that up. I would create an array that would hold multiple folders, the names of those multiple folders, and then you could pass in the you could pass in the element of that array right here, and you could create a loop to go loop through the array, and every time through the loop, this item right here would change. And because that changed, everything below, you're going to have, say you had an array of 5 folders. Well, here, the first time through, it would look at the first folder, and then it would get all this data for that folder. Next time through, this would change to the next folder. Because it's an array, it would go to the next item, and you would get the data for multiple folders. So it's real easy to get. Let's say you had 50 folders. You want everything in every file in those 50 folders. That'd be real simple to do. You create an array of 50 items, and you just loop through it, and you run this script. So it would really be, one loop around this whole thing, and you could get that done. And if you have the names of the hard part is creating the array that's 50 folders long. But if you just put it in a worksheet, you could just loop down the worksheet and go through every folder name. Okay, so kind of got off on a tangent there at the end, but main point is this is good when you need to do something like that. Finally, just go back to excelvbasequel.com. I'm going to post all the code that you saw in this video on excelvbasequel.com, so if you want to download it, you could. Again, if you have questions, contact me here. And until next video, I'll talk to you later. Bye.